We're getting lost in the sauce. Hello, and welcome to the Reading Rusted's Book Club. This is our second installment of Crescent City. We will be covering chapters 18 through 41, which is just about up to 400 pages minus a couple.
So a lot kind of happened.
A lot did happen.
We met a lot of new people. What were your general thoughts of this section, just overall?
During this portion of the book, it seems to, I guess, pick up the pace in a way. You kind of get more absorbed into the story and what's happening, and you get more, I guess, involved to the point where you want to keep turning the page and seeing what happens next.
Really? You think it's a page turner?
I think at this point, it starts leaning that direction.
I think that's only because Nicholas has a crush on Bryce.
Again, irrelevant to the point I'm trying to make. What I'm saying is that the story is becoming much more lively. There's more happening, but at the same time, not in a way. Like, there's a lot going on. They're doing a lot. But in the same breath, like the storyline hasn't progressed very far. There's a lot of activity, but not a lot of movement, if that makes any sense.
Not a lot of like forward progression. Really, you don't think so? I thought this section had. I thought it had a good amount of stuff. I think it helps clarify a lot of questions that we had.
You do feel like it's moving in a direction.
It's moving forward, at least, right? So, I mean, we met a lot of new people. We met the Viper Queen,
right?
Who she runs the meat market. Well, she's not doesn't run the meat market. What's that section called? It's called the meat market.
I believe it is called the meat market.
And she's like a snake lady. She got special snake powers or something.
Viper powers.
And do we know what house she's a part of, or is she not part of a house? She doesn't identify.
I don't know if they clarified that point.
I don't remember. She's giving Flame and Shadow because they are like little sketch.
I mean, she's a shifter.
The Viper Queen?
Yes.
No, she's not.
Yes,
Is she?
That's how she becomes a snake.
Wait, she becomes a snake?
Yes, she can.
No, she can't.
Yes, she can.
Shut up. Okay, I've read this entire series, and for the first time right now, I'm
the Viper
possibly learning that she actually does turn into a snake, and that she's not just called the Viper Queen.
Yes, the Viper Queen can actually shift into a viper, and it's supposedly one of the most scary forms that any of the shifters can take. Which is why she also has, we'll get to this later, but she also has fae males working for her, who she supposedly keeps them under her control or under her influence by giving them bits of her venom.
Okay. I apparently didn't read this book at all then, because I had no idea that she actually turned into a snake. I don't know what I thought. I didn't think she was a shifter. I just thought she was some, like, I don't know what I thought she was, actually. I can't believe that.
Yes, she is in fact a shifter.
Wow. You're blowing my mind right now. I believe that. No one, I've never...
Adds another layer of depth to her character, I guess, for you.
I mean, it might tell you something if after reading all three, I've literally never known this.
I mean...
Or I don't know what was going on. Okay, well, you meet her. And then you also learn about Prince Pelias, who is the first Starborn
Yep, he was
prince.
the first Starborn prince, and he was also the person to wield Luna's horn in the, I think they called it the First Wars.
Yeah, and he was married.
He was married to... No. That was his mother-in-law.
Helena.
He was married to Princess Helena.
Who was the daughter of Thea, who was the queen of the Fae.
Yeah, Queen Thea.
Was Pelias Fae? Did they address that?
He's
Fae.
He was Starborn.
So, question there then, can non-Fae be Starborn?
Yeah, that part I'm not sure.
I don't know. What I'm still like, what is the Starborn? Right? Like, so if Prince Pelias was the first Starborn person or Fae, how did he become the first Starborn? What is that? Is that genetic? Is that you're just Starborn? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a heritage thing or just something to do with their bloodlines, but yeah.
Yeah, there's something there. And then we meet Sandriel, the Archangel slash Hunt's old owner, and she is also the sister of Shahar, which was Hunt's lover back during the rebellion. And Sandriel blames Hunt for the death of her sister because she thinks that he was the one who led her sister to rebel against them. So she's got some beef. But so she comes into town, so you meet her and her. Did she bring anyone with her? Her group, right? But you don't
Supposedly,
meet them.
supposedly she will be bringing Pollux at some point, but he hasn't
Yeah.
arrived yet, and she's not making it known when he's arriving.
And then we also get a little glimpse at the Oracle, who takes the shape of a sphinx. And then we also meet Victoria, who is the Wraith that works with Hunt and Isaiah.
Yep, for the 33rd
Legion, which whatever that is. And then we also meet a mysterious Medwitch.
Yeah, so Rune meets the Medwitch at the clinic, the same one that was on the scene of the second, or no, the third or fourth.
Well, because there was 3 murders
There's
now, right?
there's 4 murders
Total,
So there's
including Danica.
There have been 4 murders total up to this point. The first being Danica and her wolf pack. The second being Tertian, the vampire. The third being Luna's Temple's one of their acolytes. And the fourth murder was just a random person near Asphodel Meadows.
Were they a human? Isn't that where the humans live?
I don't remember.
That's where the humans live, but I don't know if the dead person was a human.
Right.
I don't know. So, going all the way back to chapter 18 and just kind of starting from there. So, the White Raven club explodes.
Gets blown up, attacked with what they thought or what they determined was a explosive in the form of a liquid that was essentially snuck in a wine shipment.
But very well known to the human rebels.
Right. And they even suspected that the C on the crate of wine might have been a calling card for the human rebels, or as like a warning towards those looking for Luna's horn because of the shape of it.
But also Bryce was there, wasn't she?
Bryce was there, Juniper was there, Hunt was there, and I think Rune...
Was Fury there?
Fury was not there.
Rune was there.
Rune was there, I believe.
It was Rune,
Juniper,
Bryce, and Hunt.
Right. Okay, so after the murder of the acolyte at Luna's temple, we learn a couple things. We learn that Micah was the angel that Bryce saved the night of Danica's murder. We also learn of like some flashback about Bryce and Danica, and this had to do with the fact that someone asked her if she had ever killed before, and she said that she did, but didn't give the specifics or the details.
Like, how sketchy is that? Like, Bryce is now a killer? Excuse me? Makes her even more of a suspect, I think, in Danica's murder. Then we learn that the rifts, like the Northern Rift, there's the Northern Rift and a Southern Rift, that they are portals that are sealed, and it's suspected that the horn can reopen them. And that the horn can be repaired.
Per the Oracle, the horn can be used to open the rifts, not just seal them. It was used to seal the Northern Rift in the First Wars when Pelias. When Pelias used the horn initially in the First Wars, he sealed the Northern Rift, which is what damaged the horn. Allegedly, the Northern Rift is also a gate to hell. And the Crystallos demon, which is the demon that's being summoned and perpetrating all these attacks, that demon was made with the blood of Pelias and some of the Star Eater. Now that demon is the demon that Pelias sealed through the Northern Rift into hell using Luna's horn.
What a mess that seems like. So long story short, there's the war. Prince Pelias is the first Starborn. He is married to Helena, who is the daughter of the first Fae Queen, Thea. At some point, Pelias uses the horn to seal the Northern Rift. Then we don't know anything other than that, and then we learn that Rune is a descendant of Pelias, a Starborn himself, and that's why he can wield. What is that sword called? What's that sword called? The Star Sword, duh. Then we also learn that you need obsidian salt to summon the demons.
Right.
And that's a really big deal because if a demon is going around killing people, then someone needs the salt.
Someone needs the salt, and Bryce was able to purchase it from a satyr.
A satyr?
Sure. She was able to purchase it from a satyr in the meat market, which happens to fall under the domain of the Viper Queen. But we find out that Bryce was not purchasing the obsidian salts to necessarily find out who was selling them, because she seemed to have already known. She was purchasing them to get the Viper Queen's attention.
Okay, but also she knew exactly where to go to buy them. Does no one think that's suspicious?
Well, she tends to know.
Yeah, but how does she know? How does she know these sketchy things? For just some random ass girl again.
We have to remember she's an antiquities hunter.
Okay, and she's like, yeah, let me go buy this illegal salt to summon a demon. Like, she's not making a good case for herself. While Hunt's following her around. But, whatever. So then, eventually they meet with the Viper Queen. And the Viper Queen tells them to look where it hurts the most when it comes to the murder of Danica. And to me, look where it hurts the most. Where would it hurt the most? Your family, your mother, and that's why I think that it was Sabine who kills Danica.
And we also think it's Sabine because after the bombing of the White Raven, at some point we get to a point where Bryce asks Declan to look at the camera footage again of the night that the night that Danica and her pack were murdered, and also the night that the Acolyte was murdered near the temple. They're trying to piece together what exactly is happening with the footage and why the 33rd wasn't able to see anything. Well, long story short, we find out that the sections of surveillance footage are being swapped out professionally
by the head of the investigation when Danica was murdered, which happened to be who?
Sabine.
Her mother.
Or at least the people she's in charge of.
I mean, hello? Does that just scream murder or what? Yeah, so at that point, we're like, it's definitely Sabine. Then moving on, we learn that Bryce bought her little cat dog thing.
Syrinx. The Chimera.
Yeah, and she's gonna be working to pay him off for until she's 300 years old, which is 40 years older than Hunt is currently. So that's old as dirt.
The cost of Syrinx was more than Hunt's overall buying price as a slave.
I don't think that was true.
It is true.
Oh. Okay. So anyway, so then they're starting the so now they're really deep in this investigation. There's all these other murders. Sabine's kind of looking sketchy. So then they really start investigating what Danica was doing that week leading up to her murder. And really the only thing of significance was that Bryce and Danica got tattoos before she died, but they were both drunk, on a night out getting that done. So I didn't think that was really anything wild. It was just something that they did together. But then at some point, is it the Oracle who tells them you got the light that is not light and the magic that is not magic? Who tells them that?
That was told. Didn't that come from something they read in the archives?
Oh, maybe because they had Rune, because he's Starborn and related to Pelias. They had Rune searching through the archives in Jessica's area, in her office or whatever, just because he has the blood of Pelias, and they think that, like calls to like in a sense, that he's going to be able to find something related to the horn or whatever in the archives, and then they find about the demons.
But before that point, when the bombing at the White Raven happened, it's important to note that the Autumn King said that Bryce now needs to have a full-time bodyguard because he doesn't want to have some random Fey girl's death on his, like, he doesn't want to have to answer to some Fey girl dying in the pursuit of this investigation surrounding the horn. So the Autumn King insists that Bryce has a bodyguard, and since Rune got her involved in the search for the horn, he wanted Rune to be her bodyguard. But Bryce flat out denied Rune and said that Hunt will be her permanent bodyguard. So now Hunt lives with her. And after that happened, Hunt tells Bryce about his bargain with Micah because they're roommates now.
So then she feels a little bad for him, I guess.
Yeah. And she has a better understanding of why he feels so involved in the search for who the killer is. Because the deadline is the summit.
But they still don't know where the horn is. They don't know who could have taken it. Again, I think a big suspect is Sabine, but it's kind of a dead end right now. But we do learn that Fury is the one who got Bryce the job with Jessica because Jessica and Fury used to work in Pangaea together, and that kind of goes back to the first part of this when you suspected Fury of being the killer of Danica.
Because we know that Fury's, I guess, specialty is being an assassin, and it makes you wonder what type of work was Fury doing with Jessica in Pangaea, and why was Jessica even involved in the Pangaean conflict
Like,
to begin
who
with?
is Fury? Who is Jessica? You know, how did they meet? I mean, I have a billion questions about those too.
They're kind of shadowy characters at this point.
They're a little sketch, aren't they? But you know who's not sketch?
Cool.
Lahaba.
Lahaba's cute.
I think she's literally the freaking cutest little button of a character. And she's just so funny. Every time I see Lahaba's name or a scene with her, I'm like, I love you so much.
We find out that she basically spends her days sitting on a dull couch with her
Little iPad.
her little iPad propped up watching what Bryce called Fangs and Bangs,
That's the show. It's
which which is like a werewolf vampire romance, but it's essentially like spicy.
I think it's like a spicy teen wolf.
Yeah.
But she's so cute. And she calls Bryce BB, and then she's got such a big crush on Hunt, and
Well,
Bryce doesn't
she
tell her.
begged to meet Hunt. She said, "Why won't you let him in here? I want
Yeah.
to see him." And then when Hunt finally comes into
Office.
the library, the office or whatever, um, she like floats over and sits on his finger and was talking to Hunt. But Bryce basically told her that she's way too small to ever have any kind of relationship with him in much more colorful terms.
She's so cute. But then Hunt, or not Hunt, but then Rune comes.
Right.
And but doesn't she get super embarrassed when he comes in?
Yeah, she's super attracted to him as well. And Bryce basically says that it wouldn't work out for them because those two, Hunt and Rune, don't get along well. And they would make essentially a not great love triangle.
She's so cute,
But
though.
she calls Hunt Athy.
Happy. Oh god, I love her so much. But speaking of like suspicious, or not suspicious, but interesting characters, so Lahaba's just the cutest. Then we have Fury and Jessica, who are sketchy as crap. Then we have Bryce's stepfather, Randall, who is what they call a non-lower in the Peregrini class. Whatever that means. But he is also some kind of like super sniper guy who then I still don't understand how their military works, right? With their relationship with humans, because you have you have slaves of all kinds, I think, and then you have humans that are rebelling in a war, and then you have humans that just live every day, you know?
I think there's a group of humans that live and work for Crescent City and the Asteri, and then there's a group of humans, like you said, that are rebelling. I think not Hunt, Randall, being Bryce's father, was one of the humans working and living in Crescent City, and because
Well, he doesn't live in Crescent City. They live in a town somewhere away, outside of the city, like out in Pandora.
He fell under the jurisdiction of Lunathian at some point and was forced into service for 3 years.
So the Asteri rule over all of Pandora. There is a rebel war from the humans.
Right, and he was forced
And
to
he
fight in that war.
works. So like you just have two sides. So like the one side is just humans rebelling, and then you have the other side, which is just everybody else. And so then you have people like Randall. So it's a requirement of the military that all humans, because they don't have any powers, serve in the military for 3 years.
Under the control of the Asteri. And so he served as a sniper for 3 years, and he was so well known that even Hunt knew who he was.
Then you have some humans that are rebelling, and then you have humans that just live everyday lives, but they're still considered beneath all of the Vanir, or whatever, but they're not lowers, and so you have people like Randall who serve in the military, and they just happen to be fighting other humans.
Right, and I think there's a lot of muddled distinction between who is what, but I think, at least in Hunt's case and in Lahaba's case, they became slaves because of their partaking in the
Well,
rebellion.
Lahaba was born a slave. She wasn't a rebel.
Okay.
All the sprites, all the lowers, they are slaves eternally.
Okay.
Like, she was born a slave.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Like, she's been a slave her whole life. Which makes it even sadder, because she's just so cute.
Well, we also learn that they think that the demon is being summoned around the ley lines. Like the power grid where the first light flows through under the city.
Yeah. Which I thought that was really interesting.
And the way we discover that, or the way that we find out about that, is when
Because
they're
of
at the
fourth murder.
when they're at the fourth crime scene. Bryce pulls up.
Who actually seems to be a pretty good detective.
Yeah, Bryce pulls up her phone and essentially plots all of the points where people were murdered, and she noticed that they fell across the ley lines, which are channels throughout the city.
It's like the power grid.
Where first light can flow freely. And as they're investigating that even more, Hunt and Bryce go on to try and see other locations in the city where these supposed surveillance cameras were, to see if there was a surge in power around the time of the murders. While they didn't necessarily find a super strong power surge, they did notice that little parts of the demon were visible within the surveillance footage.
But where else were they freaking found?
They were also found in Sabine's quarter of the city, but to continue along the same line of thought with the ley lines and the first light, they also determined that the ley lines fall pretty much parallel with the sewer grid. And so towards the end of this section that we're reading right now, they begin to investigate the sewers underneath the city.
What are your thoughts on Danica?
Danica, I think initially I thought she was a pretty straightforward character, just working for the Ox as her and her wolf pack. But we also left out the fact that when Bryce and Hunt went to go interview Philip Briggs after they got permission to talk to him, they found out that Danica was not necessarily the most, I guess, stringent on enforcing the law against him and what he was trying to do in terms of his uprising and causing a stir. She actually thinks that, or rather, Philip Briggs thinks that Danica was a sympathizer with the human cause, because it took 3 times before she finally arrested him and his group.
Like 3 times of them meeting.
Right. She basically gave him warnings to stop.
Yeah.
But
we think that maybe she's a human sympathizer because her best friend, Bryce, is half human. I mean, I'll reserve my thoughts because I do know all about her. But at this point, I think she was really sketch.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know enough yet to make a determination on Danica, but I do now question what her involvement was with the horn, with the murder,
with everything, I think.
Yeah.
But speaking about the horn, back to that, it lost its power when the Northern Rift was sealed. And so then it was just given to the temple as a museum artifact. But then, now, present day, someone thinks they're going to be able to fix it.
Well, prior to them donating it to the temple, the Asteri and all the archangels spent countless amount of time trying to repair the horn. And once they finally determined that it wasn't going to be possible, it wasn't a viable option,
They're like, all right, bye.
then they
Go to this
donated it.
museum.
Yeah, then they donated it to Luna's temple. But we
But
find out that when Hunt goes to the Oracle to try and find out information about the horn, we learn that the horn is repairable and that all of that, those legends about it not being able to be fixed, were actually not true.
but that means whoever took it probably knows that it can be repaired, and they might have a way to fix it.
They might.
Because why else would you like, you would, I think it's been sitting there all this time, so you would have to know. You wouldn't just go steal it, right? You would have to know something about it. So who's privy to information about that? I don't know. Maybe the Oracle spilled some beans. But the Oracle, though, when Bryce went to, we finally learned what happened when Bryce went to see the Oracle. And that was pretty much that the Oracle went blind.
Yeah, for a week.
And that was the beginning of the end of her relationship with Rune and with her biological father, the Autumn King. And the Oracle also tells Hunt to essentially stay away from Bryce.
Yeah, it's a very strange point she made. It makes you wonder what exactly is going to happen in Bryce's future, and is it interlinked with Hunt's future? Because the Oracle offered to tell Hunt what his future would be, and he basically said, I don't want to know.
But she does say his real name, which is Orion, which he doesn't go by. But I thought it was an interesting fun fact that Orion in Greek mythology is a hunter, and they call him Hunt. And I think that's kind of a little fun thing.
It is unique. It'll be interesting to see if any of that mythological aspect makes its way into his story.
I think it's like in Crescent City specifically, like the series. I mean, we've seen how much she's taken and been influenced by different mythologies. You know, in the other stories, I think in Akatar and Throne of Glass, I think it's just kind of like a storyline, but this is so much more, like with names and places and stuff. So I'm interested to see if that plays out, like if any of that comes to play in real life, or if she just took inspiration for the naming of things.
It is a fascinating point.
You know,
I think we also need to address the fact that they, Bryce Hunt and Isaiah, have come to the determination that it might not simply just be one person summoning the demon and perpetrating the attacks, but perhaps because the Crystallis demon is supposed to be used to track down the horn, there may be one person who has stolen the horn and another person who is trying to locate the horn using the Crystallis demon. So we might be dealing with more than one suspect for separate things.
I mean, you know, I feel like they're making a lot of progress in the investigation, but at the same time, they have more questions and there's more possibilities than ever now. So maybe they've taken, it's like, you know, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Yeah.
Like they have answers about the history of things, but as far as this actual investigation goes, I feel like they have no idea.
We find out that Bryce is a good shot.
Yeah, we find out. So Bryce goes to hang out with Rune, and he's practicing with his buddies Flynn and Declan. And you thought that was a fun fact. Why?
Well, first off, let's expand what's happening there. So she goes to talk to Rune to find out more about the investigation, and he happens to be at the shooting range. And she kind of goes there to catch him off guard. Now, when they get there, they find Rune, Flynn, and Declan all practicing their shooting because they're part of the 33rd and they have to maintain their skills. So then, while she is there, she makes it a point to essentially take a shot with the rifle that Rune was shooting.
She's trying to show him up.
Yeah,
She's trying
because
to be like, I'm better than you, babe.
Because Rune and Flynn and Declan were all talking trash, so she picks up the rifle and essentially pegs 3 holes in the target so close together that it looks like one hole. And while she was doing that, Hunt was watching the whole time. And I think it's safe to say that he was getting quite turned on by that. And then he followed up her shot with his own shot right through the same hole, because he thought that Bryce felt intimidating by her skill amongst the group of males and didn't want to feel shunned. And so he was like, all right, I'll match you shot for shot.
Mm-hmm. Side note, Nicholas also thought that was quite attractive in Bryce.
That's speculation at this point.
He thinks she is something.
Again, just speculation from your co-host.
Yeah. But then, so after all that, Micah asks Bryce to dinner. And I just thought that was kind of weird. Like, you have this great archangel who's going to just go ask some random half fae girl to dinner.
And when he asked her, so they were at the comitium in the hotel, or not
in front of everybody.
They were in the building lobby.
Yeah.
And Sandriel was there.
Yes.
And Hunt did not kneel when everyone else kneeled for Sandriel's arrival.
Because, she was his owner. She hates her guts.
Bryce tried to play it off like she was a party girl and just started snapping photos with a cell phone, trying to make it look like a playful scene. And then as they are trying to get away into the elevator to essentially escape Sandriel's presence, like Nikiska was saying, Micah came over and asked Bryce to dinner, and Bryce said, not interested. And because of that, denial and Hunt's
Well, it was
failure.
really embarrassment.
Well, yeah, embarrassment.
It was embarrassment for Micah in front of everybody, like not even this little half fae girl wants to go to dinner with you.
Right,
like,
so you have a half human woman denying you dinner, and then you also have your slave failing to bow to your guest. Well, right after
who is like equal and above Hunt, equal to Micah, above Hunt.
And right after that happened, essentially Micah wanted to flex his dominance over Hunt, and he forced him to go out and accomplish one of his kills as part of their agreement, which I thought was pretty,
as the Umbra Mortis.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty slimy.
Yeah, but at the same time, Hunt's literally a slave. And he is trying to work off his debt. Does he? It's either solve this case and have 10 more, or keep killing 20
but he
or 2,000.
He didn't have to go and make that kill in the midst of this case. It was simply a power play.
It was a power move. It was a power move, but but also speaking of that, so yeah, Hunt has to go as the Umbra Mortis and kill this person, but Hunt was also kind of jelly.
Jelly of who?
Of Bryce and Micah. Like, he's kind of developing a little crush.
Oh, yeah, but because he asks after the fact, he's like, why would you say no? And she's like,
right, he's like, well, what are you doing? And then she's like, do you got a girlfriend or whatever? Like,
yeah.
They have this, like, flirtation going on. But what I noted, some of the things that they say to each other, or the way that her books have been built up before, it's giving very, like, fated mates type deal, but they don't mention, at least at this point, like, they don't mention anything to do with that. Like, even the Autumn King, right? Like, he doesn't have a mate. Like, there's no queen. Rune's mother was just chosen for her bloodline. Like, nobody that's not a thing. So right. I don't know if that's, like, a thing.
Yeah, they do have an interesting dynamic, especially now that he's living with her as the bodyguard.
But he's also specifically told by Micah, don't get with that girl,
Right, but it seems like it's heading in that direction. There's a lot of funny interactions between him and her in her apartment. Like, he asks where the soap is for taking a shower while she was in the shower, and she shouts through the door that it's in the linen closet. And as he goes to open the linen closet, he basically calls her name, and he's like, what is this? And she thought it was something serious, so she jumps out of the shower, and it turns out he's got a unicorn in his hand.
Jelly Jubilee.
Well, it turns out she has a whole collection of unicorns in her linen closet.
But not the rare one.
Not the rare one. But it was a funny little interaction. So they have a couple different scenes like that are kind of humorous.
Okay, so something we haven't talked about yet is Parthos and the supposed ancient human civilization.
They were supposedly
from before the rift.
They were
before Pelias.
They were before Pelias. They were supposedly an enlightened human race, and they had an ancient library. And when Bryce brought up that factor, that finding in their research, Hunt basically was like, you don't believe that. That's just superstition.
Right? It's just a myth
Yeah.
to them because, again, here in present day, humans are just like dirt, essentially.
Right.
There's no way that they could have ever been that advanced. Um, yeah, so I think that's something
Yeah.
interesting. I just think that's interesting, like an interesting fact, because again, back to Miss Sarah J. I feel like she just never mentioned something just to let it go. I mean, maybe sometimes, but
There's usually always a significance to anything
or
that
of
she
course, maybe
mentions.
like we're just playing way too into it,
I don't
thinking
know. In any other book she's written, I haven't
I'm
found.
just thinking there's significance in everything, single thing. It's giving very like Taylor Swift Swifty, where there's like a meaning behind every single word.
That
But
just might be a Swift spiracy there.
wow, I love that. A Swiftspiracy? Oh my god, did you just make that up just right now?
Yeah.
We need to copyright that. Um, but talking about old things, Jasiba collects old things and unique things, and in her office,
She has a
she has
Godslayer
a
rifle
gun, and it's called the Godslayer rifle, and she's got paired with it one singular bullet.
and a safe.
Yeah.
And the rifle's disassembled on the wall.
Yeah, it's just like a pretty ornament, but then the bullet says what?
It says Memento Mori, and it's inscribed on the bullet casing. It's the same phrase that you saw on the back wall
Spartan shoes.
mosaic in the meat market. Memento Mori means all men must die.
Yeah.
But the way that they used it in this book was kind of like, today is your only day, live for the day kind of thing.
Yeah. So just a fun little trinket in her office, but I don't know, because just Jessiba, whatever. I mean, she's just an interesting person. Like, she's becoming more interesting, I think, Like, so she's got this Godslayer thing, and then her connection to Fury. I'm very interested to see what that is, if we learn about that. Um, like, what was she doing in Pangaea? I don't know. There's just a lot of things.
Yeah. She also kind of works Bryce pretty hard, like even while she's doing
She's
this
not very
investigation.
kind.
No, she's not a friendly character.
She's not the kindest. But something that you pointed out that I did not catch the first time was Philip Briggs, the human rebel leader, when he was arrested and Bryce and Hunt go to see him to interview him while he's in prison. He is pretty much an empty soul of a human now.
He's
And
like a
he
shell
tells
of a
them,
person.
yeah, he tells them that he's essentially being tortured and healed.
Right, so he's being picked apart every night and then stitched back together by the med witches working for the Comitium, the Crescent City overlords or whatever. And that also happens in other books.
In other books from Sarah J. And
It was
you thought it was
significant.
a really significant. It was when it happened in the other book. We're not going to say because we don't want to spoil it, but it was such a significant moment in that book, and to see that
The
kind of
same
thing
form of
again,
torture being used on Philip Briggs.
and healing and
And
healing.
you thought it was significant that it was a med witch.
I thought that stood out to me that it was a med witch because in the other book that it occurs, it's Fae.
Right.
And so these are witches doing it. But then that also circles around to another connection, which is the three-faced goddess,
Which
the
is
mother matron and crone.
where the med witches supposedly draw their power and lineage from, even in Crescent City.
Yeah, but we see that before in Throne of Glass.
We do.
The three-faced goddess.
Yeah.
Because that's who those witches worship, right? And that's why they have the three clans.
Correct.
In Throne of Glass.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting crossover point. I wonder if it will be more significant later in the story or later in the next two books.
Because we do know that these books all connect in some way, but we just don't know what it is. But the first time I read it, I didn't connect that at all. So when you pointed it out this time, I thought that was really interesting. But I don't want to like spoil things too much for the other series because backed by popular demand, aka Orianer.
Orianer Ashner.
Shout out to Orianer and her friend Olivia. They want us to do ACOTAR because that's what everyone else is reading, all of our friends right now. We're ahead of the curve. But if they listen to this, before reading all of ACOTAR. They've read it out of order, so that's on them if it gets spoiled.
Right. They're not supposed, no one's supposed to listen to this until they've read the portions of the book we're covering up to this point. If you're listening solely for entertainment without having read the book, any spoilers up to this point are on you.
No, okay, I could talk about Throne of Glass though for like the rest of my life, so we need to get off of this track. But there's just so many things.
Lots of crossover, lots of mystery in the Massiverse.
You know, it does give Taylor Swifty, what did you say?
A
Swiftspiracy?
Swiftspiracy.
Because there's so many things you could speculate on.
So this would be a Masspiracy.
A Massiverse-spiracy. Yeah, one of the things that really sent me on a spiral was the light that's not light and magic that isn't magic. I think I came up with 10 different ideas on what that could be. I thought it was the first light. That's my prediction, that it's the first light. Or something to do with the first light.
But it is still a light.
Okay, but it's not really right. Like, my thought was that it's not really light because it's light produced by magic. So I don't know. I just think there's something there. I think there's something there.
I think it might have something to do with technology. Because you hear the Medwitch say all of the
talk about her.
So the Medwitch that Rune meets with to try and find information about the horn. The Medwitch.
Is he hurt? How does he go to the? What does he end up at the Medwitch for? Oh, because she came to the murder, right?
She was at the murder scene. He wanted to go talk to her about information about the horn. Long story short, he's asking about the horn, and the Medwitch says, well, we have advancements in medicine that kind of aid our magic power in terms of healing people. Who's to say there aren't things that can be made or created to repair the horn that are outside of magic? So think a light that's not light. Maybe it has something to do with technology or a laser.
Like a flashlight
or
from
something,
your cell
phone. Yeah. So maybe it's not confined to...
Okay, but speaking of cell phones, you thought it was so funny that... So Bryce has to get a new cell phone.
Right, she has to get a new cell phone because hers broke when...
At the club, right?
Yeah, it broke at the club during the explosion. She has to get a new phone. And when she goes to get her new phone, she gets one with a spell protection plan. I thought that was hilarious. The advanced spell protection plan, which is like, I guess, a magical warranty. I don't know.
I just think it's funny, like, if they have magic and you gotta buy this magic plan, like, I just feel like, shouldn't your phone, and then like it was like year 15,000, and it's like, shouldn't your phone be indestructible? Like, why could your phone die? Shouldn't you have like solar batteries or something? There's so many things, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the year 15,035, and they haven't figured out like more futuristic things yet.
And like, I know this is in the next section. It's not a spoiler at all. I mean, it's just like a fun fact that happens, but like, once we get to how they deliver their mail, it's just, what kind of advanced society is this?
Definitely funny.
But see, now my brain is currently spiraling down the Throne of Glass rabbit hole. Like,
come back.
You shouldn't even be reading Crescent City if you haven't read ACOTAR and Throne of Glass first. The proper reading order is all of Throne of Glass with Assassin's Blade first. Although Sarah J prefers Assassin's Blade in the middle of the series. That's her preferred reading order. Read all of that, then read ACOTAR 1, 2, 3, 4. Then read Crescent City 1, 2. Then read Court of Silver Flames. Then read Crescent City 3. That's the proper reading order.
Interesting. I read ACOTAR first. I read Throne of Glass second. And now I'm reading Crescent City.
If you want to do series by series, that's the proper reading order. Is to read ACOTAR, all of it. Throne of Glass, all of it. Then Crescent City. Oh, also, side note, I finally got in the mail. I won at an auction. First edition, first cover. Court of Thorns and Roses book. Yay!
Have you added that to your book inventory?
No. I haven't even added the other one. I'm really a mess, look. Very messed up. But yeah, what blinded the Oracle? We don't know. That's suspicious. Parthos, that's suspicious. Philip Briggs being healed. I thought that was interesting that it was witches, because in the other book where that occurs, it's fae.
There's a lot of loose ends still that need tying.
Who stole the horn? Is it the same person that is letting the demon loose. We don't know. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we just don't know. I feel less confused, but I still don't know.
We don't know what we don't even know.
I don't even know.
Well, that about covers what we're covering for today. Thanks for joining us on the Reading Russets Book Club second installment of Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood, covering chapters 18 to 41. Catch us next week with the next 200 pages, or however many chapters that is.
Yeah, so pages 400-ish to 600-ish, and that's going to be part 3. And then after that, will be the last part, the rest of the book.
With the next episode, you can expect our announcement for May's book.
Which we already did, because we already said it's going to be ACOTAR.
ACOTAR.
Yay!
Thanks for joining us. Bye! Been 4 motor... I can't read your handwriting.
That was a good one. Don't you think?